Every story, every poem, every single script, they all start in the exact same place, a blank page. Kind of intimidating, right? But how does it go from nothing to something that can actually shape our emotions, our perspectives, and maybe even our world? Well, in this explainer, we're going to trace that exact journey from a simple idea to a really powerful, connected force. So, what is the difference between a novel and a news report? It seems like a super simple question, doesn't it? But honestly, the answer gets right to the very soul of what writing is all about. One is built on hard facts and figures, objectivity. The other, it's all about feeling, imagination. They both use words, sure, but they're operating in completely different universes. So let's dive in and explore that divide. All right, section 1, Beyond the Facts. So what exactly makes writing creative? Okay, so the official definition says it's imaginative and artistic. And those are really the key ingredients, right? While a news report's entire job is just to give you information as clearly as possible, creative writing's job is totally different. It's about building an experience. It's less about reporting on the world we live in and way more about creating a brand new one for you, the reader, to just step right into. Let's just think about the end goal for a second. A story about a lonely astronaut. I mean, it doesn't exist to teach you the physics of space travel. Its purpose is to make you feel the crushing weight of isolation. A business memo, on the other hand, it has one job and one job only, to get the team to understand and act on the quarterly goals. See the difference? One is aiming for your heart, the other is aiming for your to-do list. And of course, the language itself totally reflects this difference in purpose. Think about it. Her smile was a crescent moon. That doesn't just describe a shape, it paints a picture, right? It creates a mood, a feeling of quiet, maybe mysterious beauty. Now, compare that to the patient exhibited symptoms of fever and fatigue. That's precise, it's objective. It leaves absolutely no room for you to interpret it differently. And in a hospital, that precision is literally a matter of life and death. But in a story, that room for interpretation, that's where all the magic happens. Okay, section 2. The power of story. So we've kind of figured out what creative writing is, but I think the bigger, more interesting question is why? Why are we so completely obsessed with stories? What is it about them that's so fundamental to just being human? Well, it turns out that stories really serve 3 of our deepest, most human needs. There's the need to express ourselves and to heal. There's the need for pure joy and escape. And then there's the need to look at the world we live in and, well, critique it. Basically, stories let us heal, play, and provoke. So let's talk about that first one, expression. For an author like Sylvia Plath, writing something as intense as The Bell Jar, it wasn't just some artistic project. It was a lifeline. It was her way of mapping out and trying to make sense of her own devastating struggles with mental health. And then for us, the readers, that map becomes this incredible source of connection. It's a voice reaching out across the pages saying, hey, you are not alone in this. And then you've got the total magic of pure escapism. Because let's be honest, sometimes we don't want a mirror held up to our lives. We want a portal to somewhere else entirely. And writers like J.R.R. Tolkien, they are absolute master architects. They build these sprawling worlds with their own deep histories, their own languages, their own rules, all so we can just completely get lost in them. It's such a vital way to recharge our sense of wonder. And finally, stories can be weapons. Seriously. By creating a terrifying dystopian world like she did in The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood is holding up this distorted funhouse mirror to our own society. And it forces us to see our own reality more clearly, to confront these really uncomfortable truths about power and control and justice in a way that, a simple news headline or a protest sign just can't. Okay, on to section 3, the writer's toolkit. We've got the what and we've got the why. So now let's talk about the how. What are the main tools, the main forms that writers use to actually bring these stories to life? First up, poetry. You could think of poetry as writing at its most concentrated. It's really an art of compression. It uses rhythm and sound and these super dense images to basically distill a huge feeling or a really complex idea down into just a handful of perfectly chosen words. It's all about getting the maximum impact in the minimum amount of space. Then you've got fiction. So we're talking novels and short stories. This is the architecture of world building. Fiction uses all those classic tools you know, character, setting, conflict, to build a whole narrative journey that guides us from a beginning, through a middle, to an end, and just immerses us completely along the way. And then there's creative nonfiction, which is this really fascinating hybrid. It's totally bound by the rules of reality, meaning the events have to be true. But, and this is the cool part, it borrows all the best tools from the fiction writer's toolkit. It uses storytelling techniques, character development, and personal reflection to make cold, hard facts feel as gripping as any novel. So, you can see that even though all these forms are creative, their missions are really different. If you want to make someone feel one single powerful emotion, boom, you might go with poetry. If you want to take them on a whole journey to another world, you'd probably choose fiction. And if you want to help them understand a real experience through your eyes, you'd probably write an essay. It's a classic case of form following function. And that brings us to our final section, number 4, writing our world. We've looked at the craft, the nuts and bolts, but what's the ultimate point of it all? How does this quiet, really personal act of telling a story actually go on to shape the big, wide world we all share? The impact really does ripple outward. Internally, just the act of writing and reading stories helps build our self-awareness and our emotional resilience. But externally, it does something that's maybe even more critical. It acts as our primary engine for empathy. It's the way we see the world through other people's eyes. And by doing that, it preserves marginalized voices, it keeps forgotten histories alive, and yeah, it can even inspire massive social change. Okay, let's make this concrete. Imagine a student gets an idea to write a play about climate change. Just the process of writing it forces them to dig into the science, which deepens their own knowledge. That's the educational part. But the real payoff? That comes when the play actually gets put on stage. It transforms all that dry data and all those facts into a powerful human story that can inspire a whole audience to demand action. That right there. That's the journey from a private idea to a public impact. So ultimately, if you boil it all down, it really comes to this one powerful idea. Creative writing is both a mirror and a window. It's a mirror that reflects our own human experiences back at us, and it's a window that lets us look out into totally new perspectives. It shows us ourselves, and it shows us others. And really, we need both of those to be complete. You know, every story we read changes us a little bit, and every story we tell changes the world, even if it's just in a small way. So I guess the only question left for you is, what story will you discover next?